What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Talking Thrones. Today I want to talk about Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen, and whether or not they will die by the end of this series. There are thousands of theories about how this story is going to end, and most of the popular theories involve Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen dying at some point, possibly even sacrificing themselves in order for everyone else to survive. But I'm wondering what all of you have to say about some of these things, because although I have received some comments from you about the fate of some characters, I have yet to see what all of you think about the future of two of the most popular characters in this show, and arguably two of the most important people in terms of the endgame. When George R.R. Martin originally wrote out a draft for this story, he had 5 characters in mind that he planned on having survive the entire story. The 5 characters that he said would survive would be Bran Stark, Arya Stark, Tyrion Lannister, Daenerys Targaryen, and Jon Snow. These were the key characters that the books were to be designed around their survival, but a lot has changed since George wrote that original draft. He never ended up doing most of the things that he wanted to do, so this could mean the fate of those 5 characters has changed as well. In fact, he may have even started to foreshadow their deaths. Given the history of this story and show, it hasn't been too kind to its conquerors and rulers. But does it mean bad news for Jon and or Daenerys? The television show has also made a lot of changes to George's story, but the showrunners Dan and Dave have said on several occasions that George did tell them the end of his story, so I'm going to assume they will end the show in a very similar way. They will take different paths to get there, but they will most likely end on the same note. But that's still to be determined. One of the most popular and debated theories revolves around Daenerys Targaryen and a specific vision she had while she was at the House of the Undying. Now, what she saw in the books and what she saw in the television show are completely different things. And she also had a lot more visions and dreams in the books as well. But back in Season 2, Daenerys had a vision where she was walking inside the Great Hall of the Red Keep. The roof was completely destroyed, and the entire room was covered in snow. As she walks up to the Iron Throne, she reaches her hand out to touch the snow-covered throne, but as she is reaching out toward it, she suddenly hears her dragons, which makes her stop before she ever touches it. Most people think that this means Daenerys will never sit on the Iron Throne. She may rule the 7 kingdoms, but she will never actually sit on the throne. Some people even say that the snow covering the entire room represents Jon Snow, and that he will actually be the one to rule in the end. And I must say, that theory does make a lot of sense to me, but this isn't the only thing that she saw. After she hears her dragons, she turns away from the throne and begins to walk away. As she is leaving the room, she is suddenly standing in front of the gate at Castle Black, the gate that leads to the northern side of the wall. As the gate opens and Daenerys walks outside, she suddenly sees a tent off into the distance, which she then begins to start walking towards. When she gets inside the tent, she realizes Khal Drogo and their son are inside, and everything inside the tent starts to brighten up and seems very peaceful and happy inside, unlike the conditions beyond the wall. Now, this can also be interpreted in many different ways, but from what I've seen, most people think Daenerys will die at the wall or beyond the wall fighting the Night King, and after she dies, she will be reunited with her family. Now, do you agree with the way people have interpreted this vision, or do you think it means something else? In my opinion, it does make some sense, but I'm not so sure it's accurate. Another widely believed theory is that Daenerys Targaryen is Nyssa, and I'm just going to give you a brief description of this theory for those of you that aren't too familiar with it. Tony Teflon also made a video about this a while ago, and he gives a great explanation of how this may go down. I'm going to put his link down in the description as well. I highly recommend watching that video too. But Nyssa was the wife of Azor Ahai, who forged the famous sword called Lightbringer. When darkness covered the world, Azor Ahai knew that he needed to forge a hero sword, so he worked his ass off trying to make the perfect sword. But every time he tried to temper the sword, it would break. And after 2 failed attempts, he worked on one more sword for 100 days and 100 nights. But this time he was going to use his wife to temper the sword. So he had Nyssa bare her breast, and he drove the sword right into her chest, which caused the sword to ignite, creating Lightbringer. A large portion of this community believes that something very similar will happen to Daenerys Targaryen. And not only that, but Jon Snow may actually be Azor Ahai, and he will need to plunge his sword into Dany's chest in order to create Lightbringer, the ultimate sword to be used to defeat the Night King. This could also be seen as another bittersweet way to end things. There are a lot of people who love Daenerys Targaryen, but in order for everyone else to survive, she may have to die in the end. And her sacrifice could ultimately lead to defeating the Night King. Daenerys dying would be bitter, but defeating the Night King and giving the people a chance to restore Westeros would be sweet. But Jon Snow also plays into this bittersweet ending, because Jon Snow may need to do something similar in order to stop the Night King from advancing and taking over the world. As of right now, Jon Snow has been the leading voice when it comes to warning everyone of the impending doom that is lurking beyond the wall. Jon Snow has been rallying everyone together, even enemies, because he knows without the help of everyone, they will not survive the winter. Jon Snow even died for this cause already, trying to unite the Wildlings and the Night's Watch, who had been enemies for a very long time. And for the most part, Jon Snow does have the North back under control right now, standing together and ready to fight together. But it's not enough, so he's going to have to branch out this season and look for some more alliances before the Long Night eventually sets over Westeros. Even if Jon Snow is able to unite all of the Seven Kingdoms, it still might not be enough for him to overcome the Night King and his massive army of the dead, which may leave Jon with no choice but to sacrifice himself, so that he can save the rest of humanity from being turned into more meat for the Night King's army. When this story nears its end, there will most likely be one final showdown between Jon Snow and the Night King, and there are a lot of people out there who say Jon will have to give himself if he truly wants to stop the Night King from taking over everything. The Night King did take interest in Jon Snow during the battle at Hardhome. He was definitely intrigued by what he saw, and some say the Night King may have even seen something that was familiar to him, almost as if he knew exactly who Jon Snow was. Old Nan once said that the Night's King was a Stark of Winterfell, and the brother to the King of Winter. She even suggested that his name was Brandon, which is very interesting because obviously Bran's name is Brandon, and Jon could be seen as the King of Winter right now. This could explain the connection the Night King had with Jon. He may have even been looking at Jon as if he knew him, or knew he was family. This connection will absolutely play a role in the endgame, and some people say that Jon Snow will have to become the next Night King, so that he himself can stop the army of the dead. Jon may have to give the ultimate sacrifice to become the leader of the dead and spend the rest of his life in the lands of always winter to ensure that the attacks on Westeros will stop. I gotta be honest with you, that would be one hell of an ending if Jon had to become the next Night King. That would be pretty damn crazy. But while we're on the topic of the Night King, what do you all think about the possibility of us seeing the Night Queen? Do you think we will ever see a Night Queen in the television show? I know a few of you have said in the comments before that you think Daenerys Targaryen will become the Night's Queen after she is killed by the White Walkers. That would be pretty damn interesting if she did. That would be the ultimate combination of ice and fire if so. The Night King is basically made out of ice, and Daenerys, well, is basically made out of fire at this point. Could Daenerys and the Night King be the Song of Ice and Fire? I'm not so sure they're going to do this in the show, but I know they did kind of tease this in the Long Walk trailer, when Cersei exhaled and it transitioned into the Night King's eye. But I think that was just hinting at how far winter will reach south. But comment down below if you think otherwise. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. In my opinion, I think one of the easiest explanations about who will live or die in this series may be one of the most obvious hints we have gotten, which is the popular phrase in the show and amongst us fans, which is, all men must die. That right there could be the answer, but does that mean men and women will die? Jon Snow would certainly fit into that phrase, but would Daenerys? It's not so clear with her. And I could go on all day with theories about how Jon and Dany will die, but I just wanted to talk about some of the ones that I hear the most, so that I can get your opinions on whether or not two of the most popular characters in this show will die or not. What do you think about this? Do you think everyone's going to die in the end? Or do you think Jon and Dany will die, or both of them will die? Give me your thoughts on this, and if you do think they're going to die, let me know how you think they will die. Even if it's tinfoil, I would love to hear your reason why. Before I go, I want to thank the Whites King on Twitter for helping me out with this thumbnail. If you haven't started to follow him yet, then you definitely should. He is always posting some really cool Game of Thrones artwork that he creates. And he's also going to be live tweeting during the season, with some funny pictures and memes that I think you would like as well. But anyways, thanks for stopping by and watching my video once again. We're getting so close to the season premiere, and I can't wait to start breaking down each episode so we can discuss any and everything going on this season. I'm really looking forward to watching this season with all of you, and I plan on releasing all kinds of different videos this season, so I hope you all come along for the ride. I want to give a big thanks to everyone that supports this channel on Patreon. Your donations have helped me out tremendously. I was actually able to get some new equipment for the upcoming season, so I hope you like what I'm going to be producing within the next few weeks when the show starts. I hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you down in the comment section. Bye.